Darkcast Network, bringing our indie podcasts out of the shadows. Paganism is the reason for the season. Hello, my dear listener. It is me. I know I've only just spoke to you a couple of days ago, but I couldn't help myself, and I've created another delightful offering for the festive season of Yule and Christmas. This is with my friend Chew, who is turning out to be the resident Heathen and folklore specialist on the Bell Witch podcast, talking about his lifestyle of heathenry and mythology of his belief system. This is the official last Moot Loot of the year of 2025, all about Odin and perhaps his influence on the legend that we know today as Santa Claus this time of year. There are indeed a lot of uncanny coincidences in quotation marks. It's a right grand episode with lots of heathen loveliness and mythology, and I hope you enjoy. All that is left for me to say is thank you so much for supporting the Bell Witch podcast over the past almost 3 years. I've come a long way, I feel. I've learned a lot, and I'm definitely more confident, and I have a direction. And may the Bell Witch podcast continue to fill my witchy pagan heart with joy and happiness and abundance. It is absolutely pure magic. Blessed be Merry Yule, Happy Christmas, and may your New Year's be as positive as the first sun rays of spring. As it is coming up to Yule time, I was doing a bit of research for a festive episode and came across a bit of Norse mythology. And I thought to myself, who would be good to talk to about this little gem? And so I thought I'd invite my mate Chew back on the podcast. Hiya, Chew.
Hello.
Here he is.
How you doing? It's great to be back on the show again. How many times now?
You're like my resident Viking.
Well, I know we were joking about it the other day. This is actually my 5th time on the Bell Witch podcast.
Yes, 5.
Yeah.
Bloody fabulous.
I know, you're going to start charging me rent soon.
Living here rent free, what you playing at?
But, I love the podcast. I tune in, try and keep up with the episodes I can. I'm extremely busy these days. Got a lot of exciting things going off in my life right now. And a lot of things coming up in the next year, you won't believe.
Oh, exciting.
Definitely, yeah. It's definitely all tied in, with my heathen, Norse pagan, Germanic pagan faith. Yeah, I've been blessed recently, and there's a lot of exciting things coming up. So I'm very, like you, just busy,
Which is very good. And I know you've been at work today and you've come home and done masses of scribbling for this episode, which is amazing. And I thank you so much.
It's amazing what the power of caffeine can do. I don't know. My mind and my energies have been very open lately. And I've noticed when it's like that, because I become extremely creative, sometimes at the cost of sleep. I'm very nocturnal and my mind is very hyperactive at night. Mm-hmm. So, especially with the moon's prevalence, my brain kind of goes in overdrive. I start getting Shakespeare about this kind of stuff.
Shakespeare. So what have you got for us today then, Mr. Chew?
Well, I figured in the spirit of things, because we are in the final month of the year and Yule is upon us. Like me, we absolutely love Yule. It's in my kind of like pagan branch, it is the most important holiday of the year, of the ever winding calendar wheel. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about lore, about Yule, the tradition of Yule, and how it ties into the god Odin, who is the chieftain of my heathen faith. You know, he is the All Father. He is basically the god of the gods. And how much people actually read into like the history of Yule is quite a prominent figure. Honestly, there's a lot of things I know we could talk about that just how his presence and how involved and synonymous he is with Yule, and the fact that we how we truly honor him. As Yule comes about every year, we have the changing of the seasons and stuff. So I would like to share with you a little story time, if that's okay.
Oh, come and sit down with me, my child.
Well, as I said in our Norse Shadows trilogy, come sit with me by the fire.
Yes.
Pour a horn of mead and let us begin. The story I'm going to tell you about today is a tale that's been going for centuries, and it is probably the most prolific example of Odin and how he's engaged with Yule and the winter solstice. And it is the story about Odin and the wild hunt. At this time of year, Yule, Odin actually is a highly prominent figure because at this time he is sort of the overseer of this time of cosmic renewal, where the veil between the mortal and divine realms is at its most thinnest. Because as we know, 21st of December, Yule begins, and we have the shortest day of the year and the longest night, which marks the winter solstice. On this day, it is told that Odin leads what's known as the wild hunt. And what that is a spectral procession of souls, entities across the midwinter sky. So, as to what these entities were in this story, the most popular accepted account is that they were sort of spectral huntsmen riding atop of ghostly steeds. This seems to be like the most popular accepted account of the story. However, there has been many rehashings, retellings, many different adaptations of the story. As the further that you look into it, there's other accounts of mentions of other things, not just huntsmen and spectral horses, but also mentioning of hounds, of wolves, of birds, and even Valkyries in presence. Now, what makes this story interesting is like many tales of folklore, the details vary due to many different tellings and adaptations of the story, and I'll explain. What is widely debated is what is Odin's motivation? Why does Odin lead this kind of like spectral ensemble across the midwinter sky? There's been kind of different takes, good and bad. So I think firstly what we'll begin is we'll go with the sort of like the more positive end of, this interpretation of this great story. So firstly, on the good account, Odin is seen as like a prominent benevolent figure, a gift giver or a gift bringer. And during the winter festival of Yule, he would bestow gifts and blessings to those he would deem as being worthy, essentially. And children would leave hay in their boots as an offering to his fabled horse, Sleipnir, his loyal eight-legged steed. And in exchange, the next morning, the children would awake to find treats in place of the boots in the form of bread and candy. Now, if you think this kind of sounds awfully familiar to another well-known beloved figure around this
Oh,
time of year,
who could it be? It's the big
it,
man in red.
see if you know. So, in Norse tradition, Odin's arrival is was seen as eagerly anticipated. It was like seen as a harbinger of good fortune and joy. But around this time of year, who else do we look forward to as a harbinger of fortune and goodwill? who potentially leaves presents overnight, and you wake up in the morning and you're like, did he
Santa,
get the
is
news
that
yet?
you?
Well, this is quite amusing because what I'm about to say now is there is sort of a huge myth, a theory, or dare I say, a conspiracy that Santa Claus, who we all know and love, is heavily inspired by Odin. Or, dare I say, even more conceivable, they are in fact both one and the same.
Da, da, da.
See, Odin, according to lore, is known as a powerful shapeshifter. He could take and transform into any guise that he wished, be it man, god, or beast. Now, the thing is, we've got to look at the very striking similarities between the two. I'm going to quickly run them down for you right now. Both individuals are described as elderly, bearded, robed men. Both engaged in the act of gift giving. Children left offerings to both of them, hay for Odin's horse and carrots for Santa's reindeer. Odin flew across the skies on his eight-legged horse Sleipnir, a possible precursor to Santa's 8 reindeer, both magical companions as well. And finally, elves are both attested in each other's mythos. Kind of scary, isn't it, when you think
It
about
is.
it?
There's a lot. And also, dare we say, Odin came up with the naughty list and the nice list.
Mm-hmm. Tell you what makes this like particularly interesting as well, because when most people like think of like Santa Claus, they think his origin stems from obviously Saint Nicholas. That was basically where they accept where the kind of creation of what we know as Santa Claus is today. But it's kind of spooky to really think about just how quite similar both these characters are. So as you can see in the good interpretation of the story of the Wild Hunt, Odin acted in very similar fashion to Santa Claus. So he would travel through the sky. Thing is with Odin as well, he was a god omniscience, he was a god of wisdom, and he had his 2 kind of faithful ravens, that Hugin and Moonin, which would act as the Allfather's eyes. He kind of could like confine his spirit, his Huga, into his companions. And obviously, because he had such a wide scope of understanding and omniscience and, dare I say, omnipresence, he could kind of work out which kids was on the good list and which one's on the naughty list.
There you go.
So that's kind of one interpretation of the story. It's quite a nice story, guy flies across in the air and gives good little boys, presents. Unfortunately, there's always 2 sides to a story. Drawing back to this origin of the Wild Hunt story. See, we've spoke of the good kind of benevolent hypothesis here, but now I'm going to share the negative connotations that have been implied to the tale. The thing what we have to bear in mind about Odin is a highly complex, very multifaceted god. Obviously, monotheistic gods are kind of presented as being pure and kind of perfect, kind of without flaw, without sin. But in my theory, like the old gods were actually just in fact just as flawed and just as complicated as man. On one face, we have Odin, who is the god of wisdom, of runes, of poetry. But on the other hand, he was also the god of prophecy, of war, of death. Many faces to the gods, which makes them kind of like relatable in a sense to mortal men, but also more hard and difficult to engage with because they are more complicated.
Hey, what you doing right now? Besides listening to a rather awesome podcast, might I add. Well, while you're here, do you fancy just opening up the app in which you're listening to this podcast on and putting some stars in for that little podcast which is independently made, with no backing or large funding bodies? Perhaps writing a quick review saying, "This is awesome!" Blush. In all honesty, those stars mean a lot to podcasters like myself, and they really do help us to grow and increase our reach as a podcast episode. It is a labour of love, and we all are addicted to creating content for you right now to enjoy and be thoroughly entertained. It's magic, as those stars really do help the show to shine. So if you don't mind and your thumbs are not too tired, please leave a rating and review. You legend. Okay, thanks for that. I shall leave you be to enjoy the episode.
So, over time, the accounts of the story of the Wild Hunt began to differ and diversify. When the kind of Christianization of Europe could be seen maybe as a possible factor, because some telling of the Wild Hunt, the story was seen as sort of an evil portent. Some telling that the story is an ill omen, a sign of terrible things to come, a precursor to war or of plague. The haunting, frightening apparitions which kind of would tear through the sky were almost reminiscent of the horsemen of the apocalypse. So some would actually see that the hunt and Odin instilled both fear and awe, representing untamed nature and the dead. So you kind of see how it's kind of just done a complete 180 shift
Yeah.
to the first part of the story. So opposed to this kind of joyous depiction as a kind, charitable bringer of goodwill, he is now characterized as a callous harvester of souls, seizing unfortunate mortals to be taken to the underworld. Now, people have been told they've used iron, protective circles, and prayer whilst laying in fear and hiding of the Wild Hunt. So this night serves as a symbol of winter's harshness and the raw power of the supernatural world. So flip a coin. Which side is it for you?
I think it depends on the time of the year.
So probably, yeah, in the lighter months, we could go for like the more jovial side of the story, but it would serve as a harsh metaphor of the latter, to be honest, because obviously everybody's got their own version of the story. But I think it's what the story speaks to you.
Yeah. And I quite like how it's light and darkness. That really appeals to me as a witch because I'm all about balance and
that's also funny you should mention light and darkness as well, because there's something I'd like to also share with you right now as well. After we've just concluded our little story, well, as you know, I'm a member of proud kinsman of the Iron Raven pagan kindred, and I have been for many years. But recently, the Isle of our kindred has put it to me that he would like to move forward with sort of more of the religious, the hands-on kind of practicing side of the faith, where we actually go out into nature, we create our sacred space, and we do our devotion to the gods, and we do honor, the seasons of the calendar year, the changing of the cycles. And that's what we did. Probably just less than a fortnight ago, we actually made our way to Sturton Stone Circle. I don't know if you've ever been.
No, I haven't.
It's just on the slight outskirts of Leeds, in Thwaite in Leeds. It was actually my first time been there. I've never actually been to this sort of locale before, but I think you'd love it.
I can't believe it's in Leeds. I've not been.
I know.
Mad.
It's kind of like stone monuments forming kind of a giant circle with almost like a small, say it's shorter than a table, but like probably bigger than a stool. And I remember just looking at it thinking, that's perfect. I'm going to go there. I'm going to set up the sacred space and I'm going to perform bloat, our ceremony, to honor Odin. But not only Odin, as we kind of drawing back to this theory about light and darkness, like the story that we've just told. Odin, one of his many sons, is the god of light, Balder. And this is a god who's also synonymous with Yule and the winter solstice in a sort of metaphorical sense. And it's one of the gods we actually revered and honored personally, throughout the ritual. See, according to the lore of Balder, he is seen as radiant. He's like the personification of radiant light. He's not quite, I'm going to say perfection, but he's supposed to be like a being of purity. And his mother, the Vanir goddess Freya, saw this when Balder was born, that she recognized just how pure his light was, and she would do anything to keep him from harm. In order to do so, she placed some very powerful magic, a magic known as cedar magic. And she placed what could be argued as a blessing, but also a curse, that he would be protected from all forms of harm and ailment in the Nine Realms. Nothing could harm him, nothing could kill him. But one little thing slipped under the radar: mistletoe.
Uh-huh.
So mistletoe, again, tying into the theme of Christmas and Yule. Mistletoe, beautiful, but also sharp,
And
you know.
deadly. It's poisonous, isn't it?
Exactly. And you'll know exactly why in this story. So, due to the Norse god Loki and his trickery, I don't know if it was out of envy or sure of just Loki being a mischievous little shit, decided that he was going to trick the blind god Hoda into firing a braided mistletoe arrow straight into Baldy, which would ultimately kill him dead. And this kind of acts as a prelude to, if you think back to our little trilogy of the Norse Shadows, when I told the tale of Lokasenna and Loki's punishment at the hand of the gods. Because as a result of Loki just been, mischievous little brat, cost Balder his death, which cast him down into basically the pits of Helheim. And why that's metaphorical and why that fits in with this little theme of light and darkness is when he died, the light became extinguished and then darkness prevailed. Yeah. And which is also why, to honor him metaphorically, we began to burn the Yule log, which in pagan tradition, we would burn the Yule log on the 21st when Yule begins, and it would burn for 12 days up until the 1st of January. And why it's metaphorical is because as it burns, that's supposed to show the warm embers, the light of Balder. And eventually, when it becomes extinguished, we have darkness. And at this time of Yule, it is the shortest day and the longest night. So the overall theme is darkness is sort of encompassing at this time of year as we wait to embrace the forthcoming of the spring equinox.
Isn't it weird that we kiss underneath mistletoe, though, isn't it? Don't you think?
As we can say, Loki essentially gave him the kiss of death.
There we go. That's why. Pagans are always the reason for the season.
Just elaborate a little bit more on Balder. As it's custom, after we burn the Yule log for 12 days, we then collect the ashes, and then we actually save them to a holiday known as the Charming of the Plough, which is a little bit different to Wicca because it does take place around the same time as Imbolc. Is it Imbolc? Have I butchered the pronunciation?
Imbolc. Yeah, no, it's Imbolc. A silent B.
Not quite as hard to pronounce as Samhain.
Yeah, Samhain. Samhain.
They don't make it easy, do they?
No, they keep us on his toes.
They do. So yeah, we save the ashes. And again, going towards this theme of light and darkness, the ceremony for the Charming of the Plough is when we actually imbue those ashes back into the soil of the earth. We call upon Thor, which is our god of Halloween, and we ask him to bless the earth and to bring about not only the return of the spring equinox, the return of the light that we lost during the winter solstice, but also to promote a healthy, bountiful harvest for the rest of the year. And I just like how all these little connections and little cycles are all fitting together, with the stories. Not only is Odin quite a profound figure this time of year, but also his son Balder as well. So I hope you like my little story. A modern interpretation, shall I say, of a story that's been going on for a lot longer than you'd think. Several hundred years. Yeah. In fact, it's actually depicted in a painting going back to the 19th century. You can find that on Google. It's quite an impressive artistic interpretation of Odin and his wild hunt. And then you can kind of like put your own thought process on that. Does that seem benevolent to you, or does it seem spooky and nefarious?
Do you have any insight as to the significance of 12 nights of Christmas?
Let me think. Well, obviously, the 12 days of Christmas, I do generally believe that came from our custom of burning the Yule log for 12 months. I mean, sorry, not 12 months, my apologies, for 12 nights. But is there any variation in Wicca? Like, what does the 12 days, the 12 nights of Yule Christmas mean to
I,
you?
well, I don't know if it's a Wicca thing, but I was researching the whole festivities of the Lord of Misrule, and they party for like 12 days. So it's interesting the significance of the number 12 around this festive period. It's worth looking
Yeah,
into.
in heathenry, the number nine is probably the strongest, most relevant number. But 12, I know that Norse pagans would traditionally feast and celebrate and make merry, possibly fornicate for the 12 days, you know. And but thinking like, could I do that now? You know, like
No
I've just recently done a 2 day
celebration.
sort of, yeah, with family and friends. And God, can you imagine the hangover?
I know. I can't. I'd be dead. I wouldn't make it. I think I'd do today, maybe four. And then I'd be done for.
Yeah, I think at my peak is probably 5 days when I go to festivals.
Yeah,
But 12 days and 12 nights partying non-stop sounds awesome
I
on
salute
paper.
you.
Bunch of Vikings sat around a warm fire, a warm hearth, drinking gallons and gallons upon mead, eating giant legs of roasted boar. I do like boar though. If you've never tried it, I highly recommend it. Very hard to get hold of in this country. You can only really buy it from specialist meat suppliers because they're not exactly everywhere out roaming in the wild.
Mm.
Boar is
I bet it's really
beautiful.
nice. I'd totally eat that.
Very, very, very rich and very gamey. And you can surprisingly get quite a lot of it in York as well.
Mhm.
Jorvik,
Yeah.
with its history, rich history of Vikings.
I've tried goose one Christmas. Me and the husband said we should totally try a goose, because of the Victorian Christmas thing. And it was a right waste of time. It was really expensive. Its rib cage were massive and it wouldn't fit in the oven. And it were like no meat on it whatsoever. So we won't do that again.
Well, go into the lore of Valhalla, which is sort of the afterlife for Norse warriors, Vikings who died in battle. Like the Valkyries would come down from the skies as the choosers of the slain, and they'll go to one of two locations. Odin's choice would meet him in the Great Hall, and then Freyr would take the other half into the fields of Folkvanger. But going back to the Great Hall of Asgard, they actually had a big pig.
Pumbit.
And it was in Valhalla, it's an endless cycle of feasting and drinking and fighting. Sounds
Mm.
fun.
It does.
But this particular pig is immortal because once he's eaten and his bones have been plucked clean, he actually body comes back to life. He recycles.
Mhm.
So he's an everlasting supply of delicious meat. I would kill for one of those.
A hog roast.
But no, an endless and everlasting hog roast.
Endless hog roast. Yule and
Simon,
Christmas are very meaty. Very, very meaty. So the
yeah,
vegans, the vegetarians are not impressed. But
no.
there is a reason for this, and that is because in the old days when we didn't have refrigerators, people used to feel quite abundant in meat because they didn't need to salt it to make it last, because the cold weather did that. Hence why people ate loads of meat at this time of year. Fun fact for you.
Well, you'd never catch a Viking with carrots and hummus. You never see Thor tucking into a salad.
Quote of the podcast. You would never see Thor tucking into a salad. It's funny you were talking about Valhalla. I was watching Horrible Histories with my kid the other day, and they were talking about Valhalla. They had like a door list, and this one you were trying to get in, and guy were like, "Nope, your name's not on the list." Like, how did you die? And he was like, "Oh, I did die in battle. I did die in battle." Are you sure you're a warrior? Tell me the truth. And you were like, "Oh no, I fell over and killed myself." Oh, backed out of the way you go. Good. Access
See,
denied.
denied. I've told you about I go to Valhalla Viking Festival every year. It doesn't take place in Yule, but I would love to see the festivities. It takes place in August annually down in Basingstoke. A festival that's gone to my heart. It's taken over my life in a way because it's full of feasting, drinking, and not only that, but lots of actual real pagan ceremonies. We do hand fasting wedding ceremonies. It's a thing that happens every year, and obviously I have become more involved in this festival now. And I told you about where we kind of got involved in this year when we did the sort of the mock ritual sacrifice. And me and
Yeah.
the Jarl of our kinsman, obviously we did this with the intent for it to be educational because unfortunately, throughout history, there have been examples of ritualistic sacrifice. As I said, when we do ceremonies which are called blots, the word blot is actually the Norse term for sacrifice. But in this day, it's seen as taboo, controversial. In the modern day, we just use meat, alcohol, we offer food, written prose, poetry, that sort of thing. It's become a thing now where I'm actually going to be there every year now, and they want me to take on sort of more of a role. I've been talking with the priests and the priestesses there. I've been actually added to the WhatsApp team, the creative team. So we're already about talks and how we can make it bigger and better each year, and just actually reach out to more people of the faith, our different paths.
It's fabulous. Congratulations. And it is totally on my bucket list. I do need to make it there very soon because the clashing camp that I went to, the pagan camp, has actually moved the date now. So, in theory, I could actually get there.
Well, I aim to have a car at this time. Yeah.
Excellent.
Ideally, I'd like a long ship, but
Just turn up
just have
in
one of those on wheels.
with dragon head at front.
Yeah, got to arrive in style.
Have you done a Yule log, Mr. Chew? Have you got one?
Yes, I have,
You
but it's going to be good done again, and I'll explain why. Because obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we have celebrated Yule and the winter solstice earlier than what we planned, just because of commitment from members of the kindred. So the one that we used actually in the ceremony was more, metaphorical to represent Balder and his
hmm
themes of light and darkness. But myself, I'm actually going to be starting to burn another one on the 21st. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the actual log into 12 identical pieces and then burn them one each day up until the 1st of January. And obviously collect the ashes for the charming of the plough. I guess I know you don't really have that in Wicca. It's something that's exclusive to our branch, the old charming of the plough.
Yeah, we do have a Yule log, but it tends to sit on your table and then get burnt on, I think it is 21st.
It's not made of chocolate.
But I have the chocolate version. But every year I say I'm going to do a real Yule log this year. And do I do it too? No, I do not because life is life in. So you right now are a better pagan than I.
I don't know about that. You've got the reach, you've got the influence. I'm just the mere guest, the spectator. I'm just the skaldic poet. I just come on and I talk. I talk in prose.
We all talk, my darling. That's
Yeah.
what we're here for.
Mhm. I like to educate and entertain if I can at the same time.
It was
But
fabulous. Thank you so much for coming on and telling your little fables about Norse mythology around this festive season. It was delightful.
it could be a little bit of inspiration,
hmm
to think about ideas for how they can honor Yule it should be kind of personal and unique to everyone, but I think it's good to share. It's a time of year for sharing. And drink lots of mead as well.
Welcome, magical souls, to the Bell Witch podcast. Come and learn witchcraft with me. Mindful living, casting spells on the Bell Witch podcast. Witching in the 21st century.
What the Sigma?
By bell, by grave, by candle's flame, beauty is bound, cruelty slain. This is V Cosmetics. Vegan, occult, and always witchcrafted. Use the code BELLWITCH at vecosmetics.com to claim your power.